Like to start with this panel session. This panel session is very important because already there is a lot of changes for the plastics industry going on. We talk about some important issues like circular economy, like the plastic strategy of the EU, like SUP directive, single-use plastics directive, new technologies like chemical recycling, microplastics, which I have mentioned just in my speech a little bit, and some extended producer responsibility issues, some new taxes for the plastics. So there is already some threats and some opportunities in the market, and we can sum it up as there is a change in the market. There is a game changer parameters in the market, and we are together with our friends which are just in the center of this change. So we will speak together about their expectations, and we will take their ideas about the future, which I expect all our members are more interested. So I would start with Alexander. Alexander, I would like to first start with the main issue, the circular economy. Where do you think that the circular economy will take the plastic packaging and the plastic industry? What are the threats and what are the opportunities? Just have a draft main idea, overview about it.
Yes, thank you for the question. Circular economy is basically not something new. It just had not been implemented fully by the plastics industry. Many economies are based on linear thinking, and every actor in a linear thinking has its value, has its place. And now with the circular economy, I think we are completing this circle, and we are benching, really the line into a closed circle. The best circular economy is what we do at home, when we basically are putting our trash in the right bin and we are reusing certain items. A circular economy as such cannot survive if we are not involving everybody in the chain, involving the consumers, involving everybody. So going from small circles at household levels to a global circle, I would say, in the world is a huge challenge. So companies have to get much more involved in every aspect of that circularity, have to find their place and find their values because margins are changing. Plastics converters have been long, I think, used to this linear thinking. Also plastic producers have been used to this linear thinking, and that is changing. That is rapidly changing. Europe started this circular economy thinking. And already 5-6 years ago, I said to politicians, Europe alone cannot make the circular economy happen. If the rest of the world is not following, there will be no circularity. So other regions in the world need to think together with the others on how to close that circle. A lot of technologies are being developed, are currently being exhibited also at the Düsseldorf exhibition. So I think industry is there for change, ready to embrace the change, but all actors need to be involved. And one very important part which will drive this circularity is collection and sorting. And collection and sorting is something our industries, and I'm talking about the plastics converting industry in particular, we have not been so much involved. And we don't have that part of the circle under control. So if you don't manage that part of the circle, you don't know if you will get the right quality input material in order to make this material circle. And this is extremely important. So in Brussels, we are working very hard on quality sorting, in more collection of plastics waste in order to close the loop. But definitely the future is about circularity.
Thank you, Alex. So, and talking about circularity, we just talked about the microplastic. ECHA has issued now new regulations. European Chemicals Agency has issued some new regulations regarding the microplastics. And these, I think, it's two ways. One of them is the intended use of microplastics, and also the other one, unintentional ones. We have also brand owners over here and also the industry. So I know that brand owners are also taking some actions against microplastics for packaging. And also, how about the industry? What's going on in the industry for the microplastics issue, and how do you see the issue? Yes, Giuseppe. And also, by the way, one more last question, just to add something. I know that I have seen in the newspapers that Italy has put some plastic tax, some tax on plastics. So you can also inform us about what's going on in Italy about the plastic tax issue.
Thank you. Good morning. And first of all, I want to thank the President, Yavuz EROÞLU, for this invitation. I am honored to be here. And I will start with the second question. It's true. In Italy, the government approved a tax on plastic packaging for €1 per kilo.
€1 per kilo.
€1 per kilo.
1,000 euros per ton.
Yes.
1,000 euros per
That's
ton.
very high
So
if you know the raw material price.
is double the price of the raw material. And on top of that, we have to consider that already on plastic packaging, there is the so-called environmental tax. That is another, it depends on the packaging, but between 300 in 2020, from 300 to 500, 600 euros per ton. So at the end, the cost of packaging regarding raw material and regarding plastics is more than double. And all this money is going to the environmental tax is going for the collection, the selection, and the recycle of the plastic industry. I have to say that regarding this tax of €1 per kilo, the most recent, we have to go to the Parliament for the final approval, but the government approved this tax. For this tax, there was really a very broad reaction, starting from the producer of plastics, the converters, the NGO also, they are against these taxes, so broad and so high, the consumer association, the trade unions, and also the distribution. Because at the end, one of the things we are underlying is that plastic is the real material to achieve the objective of the circular economy. So we have not to eat the plastics, we are saying, but you have to have plastics to achieve the objective of the circular economy. Of course, and I finish, and we shall talk again during this discussion. Of course, plastic has...
So just a moment, to underline it. So any packaging in Italy regarding the recycled content, I guess, yes. It's a part of it, has to pay €1,000 per ton extra tax if it is from not recycled plastic, exactly?
Exactly.
So that's incredible. We know what raw material price, which is something around €1,000, so it's doubled now if you are doing some packaging. Absolutely. And so the consumers are very unhappy about that.
They are very unhappy, and everybody are reacting and writing and putting a lot of public declaration against this tax. So we shall see, but for the moment the tax has been approved.
But I think it's independently if it contains recycled material or not, huh?
For the moment, yes.
It's independent.
It's
yes.
independent.
That's interesting, because now, even though if it is recycled, it pays this tax, right?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay. So that's interesting, because normally now there is another issue in the EU Parliament, as I know, about making a special tax for the plastics regarding their recycled content. But Italy now, even though it's recycled or not, you have, even though you make it 100% recycled,
exactly.
you have to pay this tax.
Yes, for the moment, yes.
So unfortunately, I think now we will go for that. But the tax proposal in EU, the name was very interesting. It's called Brexit plastic tax, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Because Britain is going out of EU, they need some money, and the name is very obvious. It's not just a joke, by the way. It's a Brexit tax. So I think in Italy they need some kind of financing of the public, something like this.
Somebody said that this is the beginning of the end of the plastic industry, of course. But we are fighting a lot all together with the Industry Federation, and we really are trying to put some some efforts in order to block something or to amend the law before the final approval in the parliament.
It's incredible. I cannot believe, this is just now I know about Italy, but I cannot believe if something is 100% recycled, it is still taxed. This is incredible.
It's plastics. It's against plastics.
Yeah?
Is against plastics, and this is something that is really a nightmare, is a nonsense, because as I told you, plastics, for any evidence, is the material for the circular economy.
Exactly. Thank you, Giuseppe. So it was a very nice insight, even though it was not a very fortunate one from you about Italy. Now I would go to INEOS. INEOS is one of the global petrochemical companies, and with solutions on raw materials. As we know, a lot of companies make packaging out of their products, styrenics and other products, but now they are also into another business for sustainability, which is also very interesting for the recycling, because we all know the typical mechanical recycling. We also know energy recovery, but there is now something new. I think it's called chemical recycling, or maybe other name, and INEOS is following that one very carefully. So I'd like to get some more information about this chemical recycling.
Thank you, Yavuz, and good morning from me as well, and thanks for having me. Yeah, difficult times as we heard, so as a plastics industry we are under pressure, and we need to react, but we also want to react, because I think I speak for everybody in this room that nobody is happy to see plastics floating in the ocean. That is clear, and everybody feels like we need to address the topic, because ultimately, and basically I refer to what the colleagues just said, it's not plastics that is evil, it is bad handling of plastics waste. And that is something that we need to get across, that the material is a material that, well, basically can be recycled in various ways and can be put onto the market again. It is very valuable, and it is too valuable to just throw it away, to have it going into landfill, or even worse, to have it go into the ocean. Which is why we are, as many other producers, looking at how, well, recycling can be done in various ways. And Yavuz already mentioned that mechanical recycling is probably the approach of choice for many. But we also try to develop other ways, ways that are also putting us into the position to go into applications that we cannot reach so easily with mechanical recycling, for example, food contact applications. And well, I've also just been, like probably all of us, to the Düsseldorf fair, where we introduced our depolymerization of polystyrene as an approach, which we believe is a very important step for us, and shows that, well, even chemical recycling of polymers can be made possible. I think I also brought a slide which we may be able to show right now.
Bir slaytı vardı konuğumuzun. O slaytı gösterelim.
Right. And in this, we basically showcase what we have been developing in recent years, where with a collaboration partner, and maybe you can click again, with a collaboration partner, a huge dairy producer, I think one of the biggest dairy producers in Germany, called Müller. We tried to go from a yogurt cup back to a yogurt cup, so to really stay within food contact applications. And maybe if you click, there you go, perfect. What you see on the upper left, that's the yogurt cup. It's an iconic product in Germany, which is called a yogurt with a corner. So they put something like chocolate or whatever in there that you can then bend into the yogurt. And what we did is that basically we showcased a first approach of, well, getting from yogurt cup, or getting basically from polystyrene waste back into a yogurt cup that you could use again. We did this by taking well-sorted polystyrene waste, and then I go back to what Alexander said. Basically, you need to have collection in place, you need to have sorting in place. We cannot recycle what has not been collected. That is very basic, and that is very clear. And then we take it from there, we apply heat to it, and polystyrene has the capabilities that only very few polymers have, that you can break it back down into the monomer. And that's what we do. So we come to something called styrene oil that we then purify into styrene. And that's what you see on the lower part of this picture here. And from there we can go back into the cycle again. So it basically shows that you can create a full cycle of going from waste by means of chemical recycling back to the monomer, from there back to the polymer, and then produce all kinds of plastics again based out of that polymer, or plastics applications.
That's by means of chemical pyrolysis? This is the basic chemistry is pyrolysis in this one?
No.
Well, it is some kind of pyrolysis, but one that takes place at lower temperatures than the typical pyrolysis that you would know. Because with polystyrene you can do this at a lower temperature level. Polystyrene has only one monomer, so it's fairly easy to go back there with high yields. So that's very favorable. It's a liquid styrene that you can easily purify, so it's perfectly suited for it. So it's really made for recycling, as we say. So the technology behind this is that, well, you apply heat to it, so it's a form of pyrolysis, but lower heat levels than you would typically have. Yeah.
So for some of our guests, which may not be too much into chemistry, although I'm not also a chemical engineer, I have to say that pyrolysis is a kind of chemical recycling process where you collect the plastics, otherwise cannot be done mechanically. This is the general one, that you collect them. Let's say contaminated ones, for example, you collect them, you put them under pressure and under heat, and you try to go back with depolymerization. You make depolymerization, and which I understand from
Johannes. Yeah.
But how you spell it? I almost say
Johannes.
Johannes. Okay.
Yeah.
Johannes, as Johannes said, the main thing is that it is because it is polystyrene. You can do the pyrolysis in lower temperatures, which means that it is economic-wise more efficient and you can make commercial-wise, right?
There's also another difference. If we do it with polystyrene, we go back to the monomer, so we don't have to go back to a cracker. It's a shorter process. It's an easier process than typical pyrolysis that you would have.
So you have the polystyrene, you collect the polystyrene, for example, yogurt cup, other things, you put into reactor, a big reactor, and then under pressure and heat, you put them back to styrene monomer oil, and then you use this styrene monomer again to make polystyrene, and with polystyrene you make an end product. So It's a closed loop.
It will be a closed loop, yes. We've proven the concept, so we've done it on lab scale. We've shown the first parts to the public, and we had tremendous reaction in Düsseldorf, so people were really excited about this. And now what we will do is to scale up, so to go into industrial scale. We hope to be there in 2021. Well, for these kinds of approaches, that's basically tomorrow, so that's no time. We're really speeding up there and putting all pressure on it in order to make it happen together with our partners.
Thank you, Johannes. And I'd like to ask also Alexander, do you also believe that the future in the recycling, one of the let's say, new concepts for the future is chemical recycling? Alex, what's your opinion?
Well, I'm very pleased to see at the K Fair the enthusiasm and all these wonderful new technologies presented by the chemical industry. I think it will come. I think it will be definitely a part of the solution. As you know, we are trying to build a market of 10 million tons of recycled polymers used in products. Chemical recycling will contribute to this. In how far, it will have to see how the capacities in Europe will develop. Each polymer type has their own chemical recycling processes. Polystyrene has one, PET has a purification depolymerization plant, the polyolefins are going back to naphtha via pyrolysis, and so on. These developments will have to continue, and this is normal. I mean, we are one chemical industry, basically, and it all will depend, as I said earlier, on the quality of sorting and collection. Because, let us be honest, are we going to educate the consumers to put all different kind of polymers in a waste bin before it can actually be transported into a recycling plant? No. So there will be, like in Germany, you have the yellow bin, you will have mixtures of plastics, and then we will have sorting technologies. And these sorting technologies also need to evolve in order to create the feedstock for these chemical plants. And this is where I see the future. And there will be solutions, there are solutions for mixed plastics waste, which today seems to be defined as non-recyclable. It's up to the industry to make sure that these are being defined as recyclable. These are very critical issues for the future plastic packaging industry, mainly also in flexible and laminated parts. Are we going to mono material streams or not? These are the kind of questions that we have to solve. But technology is there, and I think this is extremely important, and this gives confidence in the industry to have a resilient industry replying to it. But again, I'm saying always it comes to the quality of sorting, infrastructures, and collection of the waste.
Thanks, Alex. Yes? Yes.
May I add one thing about this point, just to give you some numbers of what means collection. In Italy, we have a very broad perimeter of collection. So we collect all the packaging. Of all the packaging collected, 60% up to now, today, before the polystyrene and before the new technology which are coming, 60% is recycled mechanically. Because we have a very good sorting plant, but mainly because we collect. We collect separately the plastic. So 60% is going there. And 0% is going to landfill.
In Italy?
In Italy. 0% is going to, of what is collected in a differentiated way. So when we collect in a separate way, in the yellow bin and so on, all of this big amount of plastics, 60% is going to mechanical, and the other is ready for the chemical recycling or for enhanced sorting in order to have again mechanical recycling or chemical recycling very, very focused.
It's a good example. So the message is very clear. If we can make more separate collection rather than wild collection, the separate collection seems that in Italy example, that all of them goes for a system. None of them, which is separate collected, goes to landfill. This is important.
Only a few percentage.
Yeah. The second thing is that 60% of it goes for recycling, mechanical recycling.
Exactly.
And 40% is possible, is a potential for the chemical recycling.
Exactly.
That's an innovation that the industry needs. There is potential on that one. The message is very clear. So now in this round, I'd like to get some idea from each of you about the Single-Use Plastics Directive, which we will discuss more. But how will it affect, and what would be their, the effects on the industry and your opinion as an NGO? Yes, Alex, I'd like to start with you.
Well, you can imagine I'm not very happy with the Single-Use Plastics Directive. I've been debating this for the last 3 years and not very pleased with the outcome of it. Although I realize that there has been overconsumption, overpackaging, and I can understand the reasons why this movement took place and why politicians who like to be popular tend to follow some of these environmental claims. And yes, plastics in the environment, plastics in the oceans, this is not where it should be. Having said that, I think that the Single-Use Plastic Directive is making some mistakes because when you see the impact it already has on the market, we are making fundamental mistakes. We are abandoning some plastic packaging for other materials, which obviously are not better for the environment and could create even, from climate change reasons, dramatic consequences. On the Single-Use Plastics Directive, I was always very much against any market restrictions, so any ban on any kind of packaging. Nevertheless, the European Union, the Parliament enforced banning of certain products, even if they are small products. For some businesses, these are quite important investments which have been lost. So I can already tell you that the impact in Europe is tremendous. People have lost investments. Companies are going in bankruptcy, which are only dealing with these kind of specific single-use plastics packaging. That goes beyond packaging, as you all know, because we're talking about this disposable tableware and things like that. Now we are starting also to clarify what is single-use plastics, because there's going to be different kind of interpretations, because there are different kind of consumption patterns and different kind of packaging placed on the market still in Europe. You know, what is really a single-use plastic? There are studies on the way. Nomia is working on that for the European Commission. Industry is involved in it. I think it will take, well, at least a year, or maybe a little bit less or more, I don't know, before we will actually agree upon guidelines to define these real single-use plastics products or packaging. And meanwhile, of course, at national level, things are continuing. Every country is looking into their own market situation. You basically can feel already a difference between the single-use plastic countries, let us name Italy, like or Greece, or Turkey, where habits, you know, drinking coffee, iced coffee, cold coffee, name it. These things, of course, countries are looking for solutions, and the only thing I can say is please look into solutions, set up extended producer responsibility schemes, set up voluntary agreements to recycle, to get these waste streams under control in order to enhance the circularity of it. And that's, I think, the good news about what the message this Single-Use Plastic Directive gave. Again, I'm totally against banning or restrictions of the market. This really needs to be checked also in every country, because countries are sometimes going beyond the Single-Use Plastics Directive. And this is also something we have to monitor very closely. I can tell you that in Spain, in certain provinces, the Baleares are going beyond the Single-Use Plastics Directive's objectives, which basically means that, you know, you can go for legal challenges. So there's going to be a lot of talking around the Single-Use Plastic Directive, as I believe we will be talking a lot about the Brexit also in the next couple of years.
Yeah. That's an interesting issue which you pointed out, because normally, just to inform you, is that this is a directive. In EU, if it's a directive, each country has the possibility to make its own implementation timing. So they can implement until the deadline of this directive, which is 6 months of 2021.
Yes.
So they can do, even if some countries can implement it immediately. So there is not an exact timetable. And also still there is a lot of confusion about what is single use. This is an important point. And how the process in EU is continuing. As Alex has said, it is now, there is a kind of company who is following up, making questionnaires and trying to understand in EU-wide, to understand what is single use and what is single-use plastic. Just a small example is that EUPC's, in EUPC's documentation, there was an example about the yogurt cups, which is one portion, or it's a multi-pack.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting thing. If you are talking about a small yogurt cup for one person, small yogurt cup, it's mentioned that it is a single-use product, even though it's a packaging for preserving the yogurt. It is accepted in this directive as a single-use product. But if it's a multi-pack, two small yogurt cups attached to each other, clicking, this product is not single-use plastic.
Correct.
So still, as you can see, there is a very big confusion, and there is some things that has to be understood and made clear. And I can see global brand owners here, they're also smiling, because the way out is not clear at the moment. So we have to also find the clear path where to go. And Giuseppe, your views about the single-use plastics.
The single-use plastics in Italy had a real dramatic impact on our industry, because regarding mainly the ban, I agree with Alexander, we are against any ban on the market, but regarding the ban of plates and disposable for plastic disposable, plastic tableware, it was dramatic for our industry. we count to have an industry with a turnover of direct turnover 1 billion. 1 billion euro is the direct turnover of the industry for plates and fork and so on.
Italy is the biggest in EU disposable products, single-use products producer in EU.
Yes, producer and consumers also. No? And this is direct. And direct, we can count direct plus indirect. We can count more than 8,000 people that have their job at risk for this reason. And we show to the authorities the problem of the water. The water.
Yes.
Single-use plastics make some safe water in some of the southern region of Italy, where we have lack of water. So this was, we can talk about straws, for example. A lot of association of consumer, they were against the straw, the ban of the straw for the same reason. Some association of people having some problem with the mask and so on, they said that without the plastic straw it's not possible to drink for some people. Yeah. So really is sometimes the legislation is coming from nowhere. We don't know why exactly, and really we have to fight against. But as Alexander said, the secret, and also you, and I fully agree, the secret is to demonstrate that all these items are recyclable, and they are recyclable. All the plastic are recyclable. Even I would add that also polyurethane. No? We have chemical recycling for polyurethane. We have chemical recycling for polyamides, for fishing nets, and so on. So all the plastic could be recycled in a very good way, just to close the loop. The important thing is to collect them and to have very specific streams of this waste. And this is the responsible of all of us.
Yes. Yes, Joanna.
Yeah, I mean, I can only support what the colleague said. And I was speaking to some customers last week in Düsseldorf that are in, well, single-use applications, and it's devastating what you hear there. I mean, they just invested into new lines. What are they going to do, right? And that was really sad and difficult to hear. But let me make one point, and I follow up on what Alexander just said, where he said, well, we need more clarity. I think that is, and I'll make this a bit broader, that is a point that you could make for all the circular economy. We need to have a clear framework, because we need to know what we develop. We need to have a very clear framework from the regulatory bodies so that we all understand where is this going, right? We need to also their support in making this happen. We're ready to invest, and I think that is for all of the industry. We are ready to put efforts in, but then we also need some kind of support. And it's not just in single use, it's even in very simple things like transport of waste across countries and these kind of things, these nitty-gritty things that can make the practice more difficult. And that's also where we need support. And then ultimately, and we had the discussion on single-use plastics directive, this all comes down to the image and to public perception. And, well, we already heard a couple of reasons why it makes sense to use plastics, and I think we all agree. It is a good product. It's a product, and you said it in the opening speech, that extends shelf life, that conserves products, that basically reduces weight, and so on and so on. There's a couple of advantages that are also, from an ecological perspective, advantages, because they have a very positive impact, for example, on greenhouse gas emissions and so on. We need to make this clear. And as an industry, we've probably not been doing a very good job in the past years in getting this across basically all of the value chain, getting this across to our customers downstream, even back to the consumer, getting this across to the policymakers, getting this across to the NGOs. And that's something where we really need to, well, step up our game, where we really need to make sure that as an industry we send very simple yet very consistent messages that plastics are recyclable, that they have a potentially very positive impact also from a greenhouse gas perspective, that it's about collection and sorting, and we really need to put some efforts in this. And if we achieve this, well, we probably can make sure that something like the Single-Use Plastics Directive will kind of be kept in check, and that there are not other things, as you mentioned, coming up after it.
Yes, Johannes, thank you very much.